Hey everybody, it's Nicolette, your friendly local ER doctor, here with another episode of Medicine Meets Muscles. And this episode is about muscles. I'm really excited. I think you guys will like this one. It's really cool. For the purposes of this talk, we're going to be talking about skeletal muscle. Okay, so these are the muscles that we can see, that we use to move our body around, that move our skeleton around. We have conscious control over them. Just for completion, there are two other kinds of muscle in the body. One is cardiac muscle. It's found nowhere else but the heart. And then there's also smooth muscle. That is the muscle that is found in the walls of your organs, like your intestines, that help kind of move your food through there. Obviously, we do not have conscious control over that type of muscle. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle look very different structurally than skeletal muscle. Just FYI, skeletal muscle is also called striated muscle. Striations are stripes, and the muscle has a striped appearance when you look at it under a microscope. So that's where the name comes from. But we're going to talk about it as skeletal muscle. Muscles move our bones. They do so by attaching to the bones via tendons, not ligaments, okay? So ligaments are different. They look like tendons, but their job is to attach bone to bone. So they are just stabilizers. They don't move anything. That's the tendons that we're interested in that attach the muscle to the bone itself so that it can help move it. It's almost like a rope. Muscles come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes, right? Okay, so like we have these huge muscles, our gluteal muscles, our quadriceps, these big muscles that move our legs, that stabilize our entire upper body, responsible for moving our whole body weight around, all the way down to a teeny, tiny little muscle. It's called tensor tympani. It's inside your inner ear. It actually puts tension on your eardrum to help dampen sound. So if there's very loud sounds going on, or even when you're speaking, the sound of your own voice, that muscle will tighten up and actually provide some dampening of the sound to protect the structures inside your inner ear from sounds that are very loud. I thought that was really kind of cool, but it is a skeletal muscle. It's the smallest one, I believe. When we talk about muscles, we're learning about them in physical therapy school, medical school, whatever. We always talk about three different things with regards to the anatomy of any particular muscle. We talk about the origin, the insertion, and also the innervation. Every single muscle has those three things. I should also add to that circulation as well. But those first three are particularly important. So, for example, your biceps muscle, okay? So the origin, so the anchor point for that muscle, the part that doesn't move, is actually in the scapula, okay, which is your shoulder blade. So the lateral part of the scapula here is where the biceps attaches, where it originates from. It extends down the front of your arm and it inserts the part that does move, inserts into your radius. So there's two bones in your forearm here, the radius and the ulna. The radius, if you hold your forearm in a palm up position, the radius is the one on the thumb side. The very top of your radius is where the biceps inserts, is where it sticks in and allows you to flex your forearm like that. It's innervated by a nerve, just for your information, called the musculocutaneous nerve, which is a nerve that splits off from the spinal cord in your lower neck. So that's why a lot of people who have neck problems will complain of pain or even weakness radiating into their arms, because the muscles that control our arms are innervated by nerves that come off from our neck. So it's all connected somehow, right? Muscles can only pull, okay? They cannot push. So if you are, let's say, again, flexing the elbow, that bicep cannot push my elbow back out to straight position, okay? It has to have an opposing muscle group, in this case it's the tricep, that contracts to pull my arm straight, because so that one is pulling again. It can never push. So that's kind of an important concept. Muscles, because they can only do one thing, they can only pull, they often work together in groups. So either opposing groups, so like biceps and triceps, or sometimes they work together in groups that are coordinated. So a great example there is the quadriceps. Okay, it's 4 different muscles in the front of your thigh. Okay, so it's the rectus femoris and the very front, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, and vastus medialis. They contract and work as a team all the time to basically just give extra strength to straighten your knee out. You need a lot. That's a very powerful movement, a very important movement for walking and standing. It's almost like a little bit of redundant action there. They always work together as a group like that. You just find that throughout the body. That's just one example that's kind of easy for everybody to know. Everybody kind of knows what the quadriceps is. So, but you do find that in other parts of the body as well pretty often. Another good example of this is muscles that work together not as a coordinated group like that, but they might work in sequence. So I'll give the example of, let's say, doing something as simple as raising your arm overhead. Okay, so you need 3 different muscles to do that, and they're not actually related to each other in any anatomical way, really, aside from the fact that they're in your upper body. Okay, so to initiate that movement, the first 15 degrees, I use something called the supraspinatus. It's back here. Okay, to get it out to here, to get my arm to 90 degrees, I now need to kick in my deltoid, so this muscle here on the side of my shoulder, and then to get it all the way overhead, I actually have to use a muscle down here called the serratus anterior. So basically those muscles have to work together in coordinated sequence in order for me to get that arm overhead. And again, this is something you find throughout the body. A great example is walking, right? That's basically a full body activity. There's your entire body, several muscles have to work in sequence for every step you take, something that you don't even think about, you don't even do consciously, your brain just does it for you. Those muscles are so well tuned and your brain is so well tuned into coordinating those movements that's just how our bodies work. It's really neat. So let's get into a little bit of sort of microscopic structure here, just so it kind of delve a little bit deeper. All right, I made you guys something. I made a model. It's awesome, okay? It's really high tech. All right. So the outer layer here, this is some paper. This is going to represent the deep fascia. Okay, so this is the most outer layer of the muscles. When people come to the emergency department with a laceration or some kind of wound, we always inspect the wound, we clean it out, explore it very, very thoroughly to make sure that this layer is intact, okay? If this layer is not intact, it often means that the muscle underneath is damaged, which is not a terrible thing, but basically the wound, sometimes there can be a little bit more to the wound than meets the eye if that fascia is not intact. It also means that the wound is probably going to bleed a lot more. The muscle tissue itself, basically this layer is to protect the muscle. Muscle has a lot of blood vessels in it. It likes to bleed. So it's just something that we need to know as we're sort of planning our care for that wound. Luckily for us, it's really tough, and a surprising amount of the time, this layer is intact when we inspect the wound. All right, let's do a little dissection here. So if we cut away the fascia, we get to our next layer. Okay, it's called the epimysium. It's super thin like this. This is plastic wrap. With epimysium is just another layer that kind of binds all these muscle fibers together. Okay, you'll notice that these are pieces of rope. They're twisted around each other when obviously when rope is made, it's to keep the rope intact. Your body's not like that. If this were actual muscle fibers, they would just be straight up and down. Our body doesn't have to twist them to keep them together. So if we take off the epimysium, you can do this without damaging the structures underneath. There we go. Yeah. Okay. The next layer we find, we find these little guys, and they have a little protective layer around each of them as well. Okay. These are fascicles. Okay, so they're little bundles of muscle cells that are all bundled together inside the muscle belly. So we'll pull out one of those, one fascicle out of many in any one given muscle, and we take off its little protective layer, and we find the muscle cells themselves. Okay, so there's lots of them in there. These guys are pretty dense. And then we can even go one more layer deeper. This is where the magic happens, okay? These, you can see them. These would be the myofibrils, okay? So the myofibrils, again, it's truly where the magic happens. So these guys are made of something called thick filaments and thin filaments, also called myosin and actin, okay? And you may have heard those terms before, but that is exactly, when you get down to that, that's how tiny they are, but that is the entire structure of the muscle. This is basically how everything works, okay? So let's talk a little bit about that. All right, so actin and myosin together, you make something called contractile units, okay? They form crosslinks together. I actually drew a picture of this for you guys, okay? So myosin, okay, your thick filaments is here in the middle, and actin are these thin filaments here. Now, we talked earlier about how muscle is striated or striped. If you can imagine, if we repeated this design over and over and over again like this, basically up up and down here and side to side, you'd get this thick stripe, this like dark band here, and then this light band here. There's your striations, okay? You can just kind of use your imagination a little bit. If you want a good picture of it, Google it. There's tons of pictures online, this beautiful striated muscle. So the myosin has these are little heads on here, okay? What they do is they form, when the muscle contracts, they form cross links with the actin right next door. And they, through a ratcheting action, they pull these two ends. So they pull the actin ends closer together, okay? So I'm gonna show you that too. This is some high-tech stuff, okay? So imagine that my forearm is the myosin filament and my finger is the myosin head, okay? So my forearm is this line here and my finger is all these little hash marks, okay? Oh my God, okay, my dogs are going crazy. Sorry guys, it's quarantine time and the dogs are stir crazy. Okay, so what's gonna happen? My brain sends a nerve impulse to my muscle, so it's time to contract. So what's gonna happen? That myosin head is going to cross-link with the actin, okay? It's gonna ratchet, let go, cross-link, ratchet, let go, cross-link, ratchet, let go, cross-link. Basically, as long as this contraction is going on, it's gonna keep happening, okay? So you can see what's happening there. It's moving the actin along. If you can imagine this happening from both sides, okay? The whole thing, I have a picture of this. This whole unit is gonna shorten to look like that, okay? It's kind of subtle, but you see now how these actin, so basically nothing got longer here, kind of looks like that from my bad drawing, but basically what has happened is these actin pieces have been pulled together. This whole thing is short. You lose that striation here, right? All you see is the myosin, because the myosin pieces are so much closer together, because that whole muscle got shorter, okay? It's contracted, all right? When it's time to relax, basically everything lets go and it goes back to its relaxed state. The more, as you can imagine, the more of these contractile units you have in a muscle, the stronger that muscle becomes, okay? So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's how we get stronger, like literally. All right, so muscles, where'd my model go? These satellite, okay, so there's satellite cells that live inside the muscles, okay? So they live basically between the cells, not these guys, but basically between these bigger pieces, okay? So imagine in between those, kind of right huddled up against them, these extra cells are called satellite cells, okay? They're stem cells, meaning they haven't specialized yet. They're just cells that kind of hang out there and sort of are waiting for further direction. They respond to basically chemical signals that occur in the muscle when the muscle is damaged, specifically microtrauma. So you may have heard that during strength training, during heavy workouts in the gym, so like something like the Wendler strength cycle that we do when we are lifting very, very heavy, essentially in our heaviest set, we'll be lifting to the point of failure. What we're actually trying to do is we're trying to cause microtrauma to our muscles, to those little contractile units, those little fibers. We actually want to damage them. The reason we want to do that is when we do that, the muscles start sending out these, a bunch of different chemical signals that activate those satellite cells to specialize. So they weren't specialized before, they're just sort of hanging out, dormant, really doing anything. Now, all of a sudden, they get kicked into action, they sort of get recruited to become what are called myonuclei. So they become new nuclei for the muscle cells that they are living next to. So we're not growing new muscle cells. The muscle cells we already have are getting new nuclei. What that allows them to do is to build more proteins, right? Because nuclei contain DNA. DNA contains the coding for building new protein. In this case, it's building actin and myosin, okay? So as we get more nuclei, it allows that muscle to build more actin, more myosin. You get more of these contractile units. The muscle gets physically larger because each cell is getting larger because it's packed with more of these guys. And you get more power. So that's what is literally happening as you become stronger, as you can lift more. That's what's happening inside your cells. It's allowing that to happen. Isn't that cool? That's crazy to me that something so small can have such a huge impact on our performance in the gym and things that we physically see happening. So another thing that I wanted to cover with this is so the mechanism here. So do you notice when this muscle is relaxed, you notice how there are these myosin heads that can't reach to the actin. The actin's too far away, right? So like this myosin head can't reach the actin. There's no actin right next to it. He can't reach over and grab it. He has to reach straight up, and there's no actin there. However, in this state, he can. Well, guess what? As this muscle contracts, basically the more it contracts, the stronger it gets, okay? Because as this actin starts to pull over the myosin here, more of these heads can cross-link to it and pull even more, okay? So here's a great example. Have you guys ever noticed that chin-ups are way easier than pull-ups? Like way easier, right? Okay, well, there's a reason for that. There's several reasons for that. But this little mechanism here is a good reason. Okay, so let me show you why. When you are hanging from the bar, I'll show you so it fits in the camera. Hanging from a bar in what's called a pronated position, so your palm facing away from you. There is no engagement of your biceps. It's just kind of hanging out here, right? Dead hang from the bar, biceps not working. Watch my bicep as I supinate my forearm. I'll show you my other arm, might be able to see it better. I'm left-handed. All right, watch that bicep, right? Do you see? Whoa, I didn't flex my elbow. All I did was turn my wrist. Okay, I'll show you again. So what's happened there? Turns out your bicep is a powerful supinator of your forearm. When you are in that supinated position, hanging from the bar, your bicep is now partly contracted, okay? So it has started to look like this. You get more cross-linking between your actins and your myosins in your bicep. So when you start that movement, you already have that muscle partly contracted, and the rest of the movement becomes much, much easier, okay? Crazy. That's why, if you ever wondered why that movement is easier, that's a huge part of the reason why. So there you go. All right, other things that happen as we get stronger. Those same chemical signals that signal the satellite cells to become new myonuclei also trigger new growth of capillaries in the muscles. So we get more and more, because the muscle is going to be working harder. It's going to be putting out more energy. It needs more nutrients. It's going to be generating a lot more waste, a lot more carbon dioxide. You need to get all that out of the muscle. Those capillaries are very, very key in doing that. It's also going to build new mitochondria. So remember from like high school biology, the mitochondria are the little organelles inside the cells that actually generate energy for the cells. The stronger you are, the more conditioned you are, the more mitochondria you have inside your muscles. So your muscle cells are actually building new mitochondria as a response to increased demand and as a response to that little micro trauma that's happening. So a lot of things have to happen. That's why it takes time to build strength. This stuff obviously doesn't happen overnight. It's this adaptive response that happens over weeks, even months. It takes a long time. So just letting your body adapt, but it is doing it on a physical level. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on in your muscles as you get stronger and work out and get more fit. So finally, let's talk about some things you can do to kind of help that process along. So a big one is nutrition. Right? So muscles are torn down in the gym, fed in the kitchen, built in bed. Okay. As you are allowing your body to make these new contractile units, these new actin and myosins, guess what? They're made out of protein. So adequate protein intake. I will defer to our coaches as far as for each individual person how much protein you should be eating. It's somewhere around between 0.5 and 1 gram per pound of body weight. Somewhere in that ballpark is usually adequate protein for any one individual person. Of course, that varies based on your activity level, your body composition, your fitness goals, your age. There's lots of things that play into that, but making sure you're getting enough protein in your diet is really key. And that's why exactly is you want to build your actin and myosin, right? Particularly the branched chain amino acids. Now, there's sort of varying schools of thought about how important it is to supplement supplement to take those BCA supplements if you guys have seen those. But again, that's the goal there, is you are giving your muscles these specific amino acids that are used to build actin and myosin. There's very high in branched chain amino acids, so that's why you would take those supplements. Again, lots of different sort of controversy over whether how necessary those things are, but if you do take them, that's why. Hydration is huge. You want to make sure your muscles are able to recover from this trauma. So we have to basically make sure they're getting enough circulation, they're getting enough nutrition, they're getting enough of everything that they need, and making sure you get enough water intake is really key in that. It'll help your kidneys remove a lot of those byproducts that happen as you're breaking your muscles down and building them back up. It will help keep your blood volume up. You need lots of blood volume to circulate to your muscles, super important. So making sure that you're hydrated is good. Usually a good goal is about 3 liters of water per day. It's about 100 fluid ounces is a good goal to have. It's actually harder than you would think to drink that much if you've ever tried, but make that your goal. Probably more than that's probably not necessary for most of us who kind of live normal lives, don't work outdoors and that type of stuff. Mobility. So again, getting back to the circulation thing and making sure that your muscles are moving, making sure they don't get too tight. Again, improving circulation, stretching and rolling them out can help with that a lot. So mobility is super important. Recovery and rest, definitely. If you are just hammering away at your muscles all the time, you never give them a chance to recover and to heal from the micro trauma that you are inducing. You're just causing micro trauma all the time. Well, guess what? They don't have any time to build themselves. So it's going to take a whole lot longer for you to get stronger if you don't rest them adequately and allow them to recover. So we always talk about rest days and how those are so important. Well, there you go. That's why. Remember that muscles are built in bed. Okay, they're built while you're sleeping in that recovery phase. You're actually getting stronger while you're resting. And then finally, you want to do everything you can to reduce your general state of inflammation. So inflammation we talk about as being a bad thing. I would say inappropriate inflammation is a bad thing. Your body responds to injury by means of inflammation. So appropriate inflammation is a good thing, right? You want those inflammatory markers to be stimulating those satellite cells to become those new myonuclei so that you can build more contractile units. But what you don't want is just basically general, you don't want your body, having to fight off and having to recover from other things. So like smoking or eating poorly or that type of stuff. You want to reduce your other injury to your cells as much as you can, so your body can focus on basically the appropriate amount of inflammation and using that inflammation in a positive way where it's supposed to be used to build new muscle cells and to help your body actually get fitter, not just fight off illness, but actually build strength and become a better working machine, more efficient. I think that is about everything I have. This is a deep, like most things I cover in these videos, this is a deep rabbit hole. If you guys have questions, you can always email me, nlawson@gmail.com. You can post them in the comments here. I'll do my best to answer them. If you hit me up during the Zoom class, I can answer questions even then. Anyway, I hope you guys have found this informative and interesting, like all my videos. Keep up the great work. Keep staying home. Protect yourself. Protect your healthcare workers. Protect your community. Keep up with the daily challenges and the Be Well challenge. And I will see you guys either in Zoom class, and I'll definitely see you some sunny day when the gym does reopen. All right, you guys have a great day.